Okay, happy Tuesday everybody. First up, today, Tuesday, researchers from the World Bank, Harvard Kennedy School, Aid Data, and the Yale Institute for the World Economy published a study which found that between 2008 and 2021, China spent a whopping $240 billion bailing out 22 developing countries for loans designed for Belt and Road infrastructure. In addition, massive bailouts have surged in recent years, from less than 5% of its overseas lending portfolio in 2010 to 60% in 2022. Almost 80% of the rescue lending was made between 2016 and 2021, with over $100 billion in rescue loans extended in the years 2019 through 2021 alone. This is almost as large as all of China's bailout lending over the previous 2 decades combined. The Belt and Road Initiative is one of China's flagship foreign policy initiatives. It has been hailed by some as a sign of a rising China contributing to international public goods, providing healthy competition as an alternative model to traditional Western-led lending. Others have accused the initiative of being a tool for so-called debt trap diplomacy in order to advance Chinese policy interests in the region. Whichever categorization is most accurate, this report published today makes one thing clear. Some of the lending has been reckless and has failed, and that failure has been very expensive for Beijing banks. And indeed, it looks like Beijing quietly realized this some time ago. The report shows that lending slowed from 2016 as many projects had failed to pay dividends. This is also when bailouts increased, a decision which was not primarily driven by humanitarian considerations either. Quote, Beijing is ultimately trying to rescue its own banks. That's why it has gotten into the risky business of international bailout lending. End quote. Some commentators believe that China's emergence as a large lender presents challenges to institutions like the IMF. Quote, the global financial architecture is becoming less coherent, less institutionalized, and less transparent. Beijing has created a new global system for cross-border rescue lending, but it has done so in an opaque and uncoordinated way. China's strictly bilateral approach has made it more difficult to coordinate the activities of all major emergency lenders. End quote. China has made rescue loans to 22 countries to date, including Argentina, Ecuador, Egypt, Laos, Mongolia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Ukraine, and Venezuela. UK-based Financial Times, writing on the study published today, observed, quote, there are big differences between IMF programs and Chinese bailouts. One is that Chinese money is not cheap. End quote. The study writes that a typical rescue loan from the IMF carries a 2% interest rate. The average interest rate attached to a Chinese rescue loan is 5%. It adds that Beijing also does not offer bailouts to all Belt and Road borrowers in distress. Big recipients of Belt and Road financing, which represent a significant balance sheet risk for Chinese banks, are more likely to receive emergency aid. The study was also critical of some central banks potentially using the People's Bank of China swap lines to artificially pump up their foreign exchange reserve figures. International media was quick to point out some of the worst examples and products of the arguably reckless Belt and Road lending. For example, quote, several projects became cause célèbre for how not to undertake development lending. An infamous $1 billion road to nowhere in Montenegro remains unfinished and dogged by corruption allegations, construction delays, and environmental issues. White elephants such as Sri Lanka's Hambantota port and Lotus Tower are seen as symptoms of the country's debt crisis, while more than 7,000 cracks were found in an Ecuadorian dam built by Chinese contractors near an active volcano. End quote. China is currently negotiating debt restructurings with Zambia, Ghana, Sri Lanka, and others. Is this the end of the Belt and Road? Probably not. The Belt and Road Initiative remains the world's largest ever transnational infrastructure program. The Washington-based think tank, the American Enterprise Institute, and other transactions classified as Belt and Road at $838 billion between 2013 and 2021. Hundreds of billions of dollars are still tied to hundreds of projects, and some projects have been quite successful. While lending has slowed down, What we will likely see is a Beijing learning from its lessons from the last decade or so, recalibrating and then more cautiously continuing with Belt and Road loans going forward, though some would-be recipient countries may be a bit more careful with future loans. We will see. Next up, Chinese tech giant Alibaba Group Holdings Limited, Hong Kong listed shares, saw a pop in trading yesterday with the surprise appearance of its co-founder Jack Ma, his first appearance in months on the Chinese mainland. Billionaire Ma has been somewhat of a symbol for China's years-long crackdown on the technology sector for his very public fall from grace 2.5 years ago. In October 2020, he harshly criticized regulators at a speech in Shanghai, which we covered at the time. Since then, he has rarely been seen in public, initially sparking online speculation of detainment or worse. Yesterday, Monday, Ma toured a private school in Hangzhou, provincial capital of Zhejiang province near Shanghai, and home to his Alibaba and Ant Financial. Yungu School, a private school funded by Alibaba partners, announced on its social media platforms that Ma had come to discuss the challenges and opportunities that technologies such as artificial intelligence and ChatGPT could bring to education. As we have seen in recent months, commentators and industry insiders are hoping that Beijing is finally winding down its crackdown on technology companies. Ma's public appearance now could add to that hope. Alibaba was fined 18.2 billion yuan, $2.6 billion in April 2021 for violating antitrust laws. Ma also recently relinquished his controlling rights of Ant Financial, the long-awaited IPO of which was suspended back in 2020. Next up, the Chinese economy and consumption. Hey guys, if you're enjoying the episode, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribing and sharing is a big help as well. And as always, anyone who can go that extra mile and show your appreciation for the channel, help keep the channel sustainable, help me continue making these episodes every day. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much, everybody, as always, for the ongoing support. And finally, for today's video this week, Chinese megacity Shanghai has introduced 15 measures to further stimulate consumption. The local government expressed in an official statement that the new measures will promote and expand consumption through the development of the first store, brand, night, and live stream economies. According to Chinese financial media outlet Yicai, Shanghai will provide policies to brands opening their first outlets or flagship stores, and to international and local brands holding a global premiere, debut show, or first exhibition in the city this year. To boost the night economy, it writes, quote, Shanghai plans to build 10 waterfront nightlife experience zones and create a 24-hour vibrant city in 2023. The government will then issue guidelines for the high-quality development of the night economy to speed up the development of demonstration areas. End quote. Of course, as we have seen for many months now, Beijing policymakers are pushing hard policies to increase consumption, something they see as critical to replacing declining exports and housing investment in order to maintain growth. International voices agree with this policy priority too. At the China Development Forum held in Beijing on Sunday, the head of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, while sounding optimistic about Chinese growth this year, urged China to, quote, raise productivity and rebalance its economy away from investment and toward more consumption-driven growth, end quote. However, some analysts argue that policies like this one from Shanghai this week are not the best way of achieving this rebalancing. Quote, this is how not to increase consumption in China. While these various measures may make it easier to consume, they do not address the main constraint on consumption, which is income. Rather than increase overall consumption in China, at best all they will do is draw in consumption to Shanghai from other parts of China. End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow.